Hi there, this is Dennis Velco with OutBüro. You're listening to OutBüro Voices, where we bring you interesting and engaging conversations with LGBTQ professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders from around the world. Today, we are proud and pleased to have Scott Seitz yet again with us. Thank you so much for joining us today, Scott.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, we had a wonderful conversation a bit ago, and that was about your organization called Pride Life. And for those, go ahead and hit this click with a right click, and so that pops up in a new tab so you can preserve and stay right here and learn more about SPCI Media. Now, if I'm not mistaken from our past several conversations, SPI Media. I haven't yet had my. I just poured my second cup of coffee.
And you only got 3 hours. Yeah, but it's SPI Marketing, so you can edit that out.
Yeah. Well, it's fine. These are because I haven't yet had my full cup of coffee. I might just keep that all in here.
Okay.
So with SPI Media. Give us a little bit of info, because I understand it was, if I'm not mistaken, like one of the first LGBT-focused marketing agencies in the United States. Tell us more about that.
We were. Thank you for mentioning that. So it's SPI Marketing, and we actually started in 1996, which was really a good time because I think earlier than that, it would have been difficult to get people more interested in marketing and talking to the LGBTQ community. What happened there actually is it was sort of founded after I left corporate America following the loss of my husband at the time to HIV and AIDS, and sort of being very unsatisfied with just being in a typical corporate lifestyle. I had been with PepsiCo, and then prior to that, I had been with Eastman Chemical, which is a division of Kodak. And I started at SPI Marketing, and it was sort of funny. It's sort of funny because I had a bunch of friends at Pepsi who were sort of, I was going to come out at Pepsi and talk about marketing to Pepsi, and everybody's like, we're not really there yet. And so you may want to, see what happens. But, I was lucky enough to go back to Pepsi early on and be a part of some of the changes that happened there with diversity and inclusion. So they were ready for it, and it was all very good. But SPI Marketing really started based on realizing that it's that we can bring visibility to the community through marketing, but only if it's a win-win. We really feel that the not-for-profit that we might be sponsoring or working with needs to get just as much out of it as the for-profit corporation really does. And that's actually how you build authenticity and how people realize that you're walking the walk and talking the talk. So SPI really focused on that. And we grew and evolved over time to include a lot of other functions, not just events and programming. We have a heavy duty background in the spirits industry and in the beverage industry, largely because I have a beverage background. But we also have worked with entertainment, with Logo TV. We were working with the first 6 years of the RuPaul Drag Race. We've also done things in pharmaceutical and others. So we worked with the CDC. It's been an amazing journey, and we're very excited. It's about 25 years now.
Wow, 25 years in doing the industry, focusing on helping companies be authentic in the LGBT community. That's amazing. And
thank you.
So just out of curiosity, over the course of those 25 years, gotta ask, what has been maybe one of the more exciting things, and exciting for whatever reason, maybe exciting, terrifying, like, OMG, or exciting, an all OMG all moment?
Sure. I have to say, there can be exciting things in a lot of different ways.
Sure.
from a community exciting thing, one of the most emotional and amazing moments in my life was in 2004. We actually worked with Gilbert Baker, who created the original rainbow flag in 1979 and 78 rather. And so we were doing their 25th anniversary of the rainbow flag. And he came to us and asked for help in securing sponsorships, which we did with Absolute Vodka at the time, and created the Key West C2C flag, which was 6,800 foot long and went down Duval Street from the Gulf all the way to the Atlantic, not the Pacific, much bigger flag. And it required 2,200 volunteers to carry it, and it was 16 foot wide, and it was the original 8 colors.
Wow.
So it was amazing, incredibly emotional, and transformative in that what Gilbert had done with that flag has really, where people may always talk about, we need something new, or the flag's overused, or it's used inappropriately. That flag we took around the world to Pride in Sweden, to Pride in Prague, to all sorts of different Pride events. We actually divided it up and shipped it to 125 Pride events globally, 25-foot sections. And we're still seeing pictures from 2004 of those flags. So that was it was a game changer, and the flag, when that gets unfurled, is always an emotional thing for people to see. So to this day, so it's amazing to get to work with Gilbert, who spent a lifetime promoting diversity and the rainbow flag, and it was really great to be a part of something that's continuing to change lives.
What a great story. What a great story. And, without naming names, has there been any kind of moments in working with a brand, and again, not naming names, and try to, clean, scrub it as best as possible, so no one gets in trouble? But has there been one of those moments in 25 years, there had to have been some moments where things were just like, oh my God, I can't believe they've done this, or they want to do that, or, where you had a really kind of a difficult situation, and for some reason, is there anything that just with that little bit of info, does something just kind of pop to the forefront of your mind that you'd be able to share? Because I think lessons learned is success is easy. Success is, people don't realize that in order to grow, is actually learning typically from failures. If everything comes only from success, you're not actually growing. Does that make sense? And so
it does. Yeah, and I agree. Well, it's funny because one of the things I used to tell people early on is, you know what, you're hiring us because we're going to make mistakes too, but way fewer than you're going to make.
I like that. And I like that, you're in doing so and consulting with your past and current clients, having even that level of authenticity to say, and I'll share with you, it's like, I was talking with someone yesterday, and it's like, look, I am a gay, white, cisgender male. I still struggle personally because I don't know what it's like to feel as if I'm born in the wrong body. Mm-hmm. So I'm a guy, I love being a guy, and I like men. So for me to do 100%. So if I were trying to reach the transgender community, I know, would I be able to do so to a level? Yeah, because I have taken it upon myself to really reach out and gain true friends in that community. However, I know several people that I would call to check me or come in as a consultant, because I want to make sure that I don't accidentally say something or do something or put an image up that would be possibly perceived as inappropriate. So I appreciate you acknowledged, which I think we all should, is acknowledge that we all are growing, we all make mistakes, and that's okay, because it is what we're learning from them. Okay, with all of those disclaimers out of the way, give us one, if you can, please, something that, whether it actually came out as being actually aired or in print or anything like that, has there been something that was just like, wow?
Right, in general in the market, or we're not talking about...
Well, in general, in your experiences of working with customers, like, has a customer come to you with something absolutely crazy in the past where you had to go, oh, not only no, but hell no? I mean, whatever comes to your mind.
Well, I think, and I'm not trying to be negative in any way, but I think that those scenarios probably happen the most when and again, this sounds very self-serving, but I want to be honest that it's not. It's the truth. The biggest aha, oh crap moments have been because somebody went to their larger agency who decided they had this great new idea and they were going to do this, and they had this great idea for a relationship that the client should have and all these other things, and they just picked the worst possible things they could consider picking. Or other times where we brought incredible opportunities to them and they said, no, that's not in fitting with the brand or whatever, and yet when the opportunity passed, they were regretting it quite a lot. So those are and the aha moment there as a real example is just sort of, a spirits industry's large consulting firm who, or actually advertising firm who recommended PFLAG. And I'm sort of like, you do realize that it's illegal for you to talk to children as a liquor company, like big fundamental mistakes that that could happen, that if it goes unchecked could end up traveling down a really horrible path. The other aha moments, though, I'll just talk to moments that are painful.
Okay.
Moments that are painful too are that, and this is something again that I feel OutBüro is really doing for people, and this is what we try to do for people, and what Pride Life and some of the other stuff we're trying to do, I think all build on. But brand managers are the ones controlling the money in a lot of these large organizations, and they are typically gone in 9 months to 14 months. So
really,
I have done Gay 101 25 times in 25 years to a single client, because they're growing and they're better and they understand more. But the painful part of it is like they lose a lot of their consistency. They lose a lot of the, they're not bringing forward. I don't ever want to say, we tried that 20 years ago and it didn't work, because that's usually when the silver bullet gets shot out of the gun right at your head. So what you do want to mention, though, is that, other things have been done. These are the things that worked. These are the things that didn't work. And that's really valuable as you want to consider doing that again. And you should just weigh those in there. It's just information. It's not saying something's not going to work, but God knows. I feel like it's our duty to walk into a client every year with and act like we've never been there before, and understand and give them a fresh new idea what this market is all about, because the market's changing. The world, marketing plans are based on 140 characters at this point. So it's a really, really very different time, and more so than it's ever been. So I think those are kind of aha moments that I feel that people that are resources out there with some history as well can help bridge that gap for these organizations to help them create better programs and more sustainable programs. I mean, what I find, especially because everybody's in a budget crunch right now, or not even if it's not a budget crunch, it's a budget I don't know what to do with it situation. And one of the things is if you do a plan and you make it conservative and you give yourself that budget and you take the year to do it, you don't try and make it all happen in June, you're going to have better results. And I think a lot of that is what drove us to this relationship we have with Barra Brand Management, which is a marketing research company.
Well, let me kind of chime in on a few points you just made. And one, for brands, for companies out there listening to that, very key point. Don't take your whole annual budget and try to shove it to all activities into June. Because you might think that that's awesome. Ooh, let's super saturate in June. No, because guess what? The LGBT community says, honey, what have you been doing the other 11 months? Right? Because if you wait and do everything in June, it's going to come across as unauthentic, inconsistent, and not valuing the community. Take 10% of that budget, do it all the other 11 months, and then take the 20%, and I'm not doing math right there, but then do twice as much as you do in June, but do something every month.
Exactly.
I love, because I think other people really need to hear this. I love that consulting approach that you said, and that is approaching your client. Now you're talking on an annual basis because you go in with your marketing and you do planning on an annual basis, right? So because of budgets and all of that kind of stuff. So I get that. But what I loved what you said is walking into your clients every year for those big planning meetings and acting like it's the first time. Yeah. So for whatever reason, but I think coming, like you said, it's oftentimes just because some of the key people have changed and therefore you literally are kind of starting over. But having that fresh view, I think, is very important. And that is, not only for if it's change in people within the organization, but it's also realizing how much has changed, both in technology, in the marketing world as a whole, in culture and dynamics, So I think coming with that fresh view is vital, obviously recognizing and acknowledging what has been done in the past. And I would throw out there, yes, something might not have worked 20 years ago, but we are 20 years further, and therefore something that didn't work 20 years ago may work today.
Exactly. Especially with the internet stuff, that they were all trying to be the first ones out there, and they had some amazing programs and ideas that were incredibly expensive, but didn't necessarily go as far as they can go now, because social media and all that have been so much more developed to really get that message out there. And I think the other mistake that often people make is, a plan is never that stagnant. You can, when you're looking at doing stuff throughout the year, it doesn't mean you can't tweak it. You might, you want to keep your same message points. I think in either a premium market or inside of any of the diverse markets, you're building trust with people. So if you're just changing a message every 3 months, you're falling prey to like just being uninteresting and not considered sincere. So looking at things like a long-term approach, multiple year strategies instead of 1 year strategies, being able to build over time on your messaging, but staying flexible enough to change the approach or the content style. That's really going to go a long way for a lot of these folks in the time to come. Awesome. And you do have to stay, and you have to stay fresh. That's the whole, having the experience is incredibly important, but if you have experience and you're not staying on top of the trends and what's really important, then you're going to be, the one-hit wonder video, Human League video from like 1992 or something.
Yeah.
So,
Gotcha.
It's awesome.
Gotcha.
It's exciting.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, would you maybe like to share some of the examples of projects that SPI have worked on in the past that we might recognize?
Oh, my goodness, sure. Well, it's been very exciting. I mean, really, when we first got started, we were lucky enough to be brought into Absolute Vodka. Since 1996, we've done work with Absolute. A lot of that stuff has been obviously brought in-house now because we were working with a lot of bars and clubs, and nobody's really so open right now. So, that's evolved. But the work that we've done for Absolute started with sponsorships and programming and that sort of thing, and grew over time to include creating advertising. So if you'll remember the Steve, Will You Marry Me, Mark photo shoot which we put into Absolute, put into the Out magazine that was celebrating gay marriage being legalized in Massachusetts. We included with that a wedding planner, a gay lesbian wedding planner, and that would have been, 2005? I think.
Okay.
It's been a while back. We worked with Gilbert Baker, which I think I mentioned before, which was amazing. And he was a genuine character, but also a genuine person who really kind of cared about what the flag could do for people. And he'd stick his neck out and be right in front of everything. And his cohort of friends from San Francisco at that time, like Cleve Jones, are still that way. And our younger generation of Gen Z and millennials are starting to move back to that older kind of programming where they really want to scrub down and figure out whether a company is walking the walk and talking the talk, or if they've just popped an ad out there for Pride that made everybody cry, and then they still don't have an ERG. They don't have a. They don't
Right.
have
Yeah, folks.
So it's changed.
I talk about that with companies all the time. You don't want to be this next year's June. 40% of companies who did pink washing in 2019. As I inform companies, as I have the opportunity to chat with them, once you start, be aware the LGBT journalists are going to be looking, and they're going to be looking hard. And so, which I think that's good. Understanding the authenticity of of a company, who we're doing not just going to work for, but who we're doing business with. That people today are much more savvy and informed and educated, and want to know that they're not just being flippantly marketed to.
Yep.
So very
that's incredibly important. And no brand really should want to be unauthentic. And it's
damaging.
Yeah, it's damaging. So I think that that's such an important point. And I think one of the other things that we tried to do, speaking of staying fresh, really was the lack of, for diverse companies and multicultural marketing, the lack of marketing research is a problem. Part of the reason, one of the things that fascinates me is that inside of the spirits industry, and we've done work with Miller Coors, and we've done work with Pernod Ricard and Absolute and other brands out there over the years. And one of the things that's sort of fascinating to me is that these budgets are all capped out at very, very small levels because they don't know how to measure what this audience is doing or where it's going or how much of their business is really a part of it. So if you're Pepsi and you're collecting IRI scanner data from grocery stores, you're looking at every day what's sold in all the Targets or in all the Walgreens or in all of the A&Ps or whatever. None of those are available to tell you how much of that was from LGBT or people of color or women or short people or tall people or whatever.
Gotcha.
And so the lack of that is the ongoing dilemma for a marketing person to understand whether or not they've created a value, the value of their budget. So how do I split up my budget to include multicultural in an appropriate way and be able to defend it? Because these managers are also going to have to manage it up the ladder to defend that budget and say, yeah, I want to spend this much here in African American, and here this in Hispanic, and here in LGBT. And, maybe LGBT now is being split up between, transgender opportunities as well as other opportunities for people of color in the community. So that is a dilemma that has to be solved, or there will be a glass ceiling on budgets for a very long time. So our current community marketing organizations are doing a good job of tracking what the community is feeling about the era and the time we're in, and the emotional concerns that we have as a large community. And that's talking about how do we feel. But what was missing to getting to that dollar, to that budget being built with the right amount of dollars to be spent in each of these multicultural areas, was the information around how are each of these individuals feeling about my brand. So how do LGBT people feel about Coke versus Pepsi versus 7-Up versus Snapple. And those are the sorts of things that actually help a brand now understand, not only understand what the return on investment really is. So you can back into a lot of different numbers just based on 18 million people over the age of 18 that are LGBT, and it's constantly going up as more and more people feel safe and are trying to come out. But you can do some numbers there, but they don't hold up in large budget conversations. So I think we needed something more, and that's where BERA was absolutely fascinating to me, because they had a different approach. They have a 1 million person research panel globally, of which 90,000 are LGBT self-identified. So now, we would often sit in presentations where a chart was put up about the community, and in the little script on the bottom, there were 90 people interviewed, or there were it was always less than 150 typically, and it always included not a statistically significant sample size in the PowerPoint presentation. So these things can't, so this is really, that's grandma research, where you're just calling up all your friends and saying, what do you think of this? And again, the budgets aren't going to go far unless we can really show the true value of this community. And, there's a lot of discussions around the total dollars being spent and everything else. But, when you're building a budget, you got to be able to show more. So that's what we're really trying to do with BERA. And they have a fun way to do it, because they call it the love curve. So they take emotional, attitudinal things that are about, and also facts as to how much sales are actually going on out there, or how much your brand equity has already been built. So where am I now with part of the program? And then with the other part of the program, it's where do I need to be? And if I focused in on African-American lesbians, then I can look at what they are expecting for this brand to do next with the emotional drivers. And also working with Jim Stengel, who was the CMO at P&G, sorry. And his new purpose-driven metrics as well. So that's there's the emotional me-driven metric, but there's also like the larger community feeling about purpose, and is this brand actually moving, our welfare forward in a meaningful way? So there's some nice metrics there that really can help you understand where your brand needs to go, where you are now, where it needs to go. And we're looking inside of a full competitive set of, not a full competitive set, but let's say a competitive set of companies. So you can also take a look at where you are in comparison to other brands in your field.
Wow. Very, very interesting. And if I'm not mistaken, you have already taken that kind of a methodology and so forth, and started working on a or about to release or something, a report, a study.
Yeah.
Are you able to chat about that a little bit right now?
Yeah, I can. The study is actually going to be for this one is for the financial industry, and I have a chart that I can share with you here. And this is that love curve that I mentioned before.
No worries.
So
If you'd like to describe it, I can throw it up on the screen in post.
yeah, let's do that. So what you're looking at is a bell curve. And this is called the Bara brand love curve. And what they do is it's sort of like, let's talk about your brand now as a relationship, which I think for multicultural is even more important. So it's all about, meeting somebody, dating somebody, falling in love with somebody, getting a little bored with somebody, I want to divorce somebody. And I think brands cycle through all of this pretty regularly because they're dealing with brands deal with this regularly when they need to refresh and find a way to take Ivory soap to a different level, or to take a flavored vodka to another level, or to take a well-known brand and keep it fresh inside of the minds of the up-and-coming consumers that are looking.
Oh,
so
okay.
This is a really great way to take a look at that, and at the same time, with some of these future forecasting items, take a look at what your brand plan is already and what can I do differently that's really more directed at my target market and can be more successful. And as a result, you'll be able to watch your brand grow. And this links actually into return on investment as well. So you're not only going to be able to see the brand grow, see how people are responding to your brand, look at your brand in comparison to all the other brands out there, and they track over 4,000 brands right now and ask 200 attribute questions or more. So Wow. You're really getting a lot of very detailed information that help guide you with how, with that information, what's the kind of sponsorship I might be interested in, or what kind of a program is going to resonate more inside of this community versus the general market. What am I doing and how am I perceived? One of the purpose-driven metrics is sort of what we talked about before, is actually a question where the respondents are asked to would I want to work there? Is this a company I'd want to work with? And by asking that question, you're all of a sudden also getting a much more a much stronger read on authenticity, because it's like, yeah, I want to work at Google, or yeah, I want to work at Target, or yeah, I want to, they're cool, they're doing cool stuff, they know people like me, I want to be a part of it.
Oh, very interesting. Very interesting. And so is that something that organization Vera does on their own, or is it through that so if you're a brand trying to help you out here, so if you're a brand, do you approach that kind of an organization on their own, or do they typically work through like a marketing agency like yourself?
They have their own. They have their own entire organization. We reached out to them because we wanted something to complement the research that's already being done in the community, and something that was more brand focused. So I think that's why we reached out, and we've created this the Pride Brand Lift Study. This is our second year of running it. And so we look at what we did last year was we looked at the top 50 brands that were sponsoring World Pride and how they did before Pride and after Pride, and what sorts of attributes they were successful at moving forward and what was not successful at moving forward. So it was a very interesting study, and we had spirits people, hotel people, banking people all involved in that as well last year.
Awesome. And I understand from our previous conversation that that new report from you is about to be released.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's been interesting because I think what's been wild about COVID, and this is specific to the financial industry, but what's been incredible is that they've continued to sort of push their brands forward and build trust and such. Not trust, but build awareness in the community. But what still is failing is the uniqueness and the real trust in what's going on. So that's their Achilles heel right now in the financial industry, is like they're doing a lot of the right stuff. But I think what's happened is when everybody's relegated to an online approach and maybe some advertising, they're sort of all viewed the same. So nobody's really breaking out other than the new entries into this market, like Venmo and PayPal and Chime and those sorts of things, where they're getting a completely new audience, and they're coming up the early curve, like introduction and dating, and they're seen as incredibly unique versus the other brands out there. And some brands are doing a great job. I know that we've done specific work for Chase and for others where they're building their electronic banking business and really moving the curve in that way. So they're staying fresh and relevant, as we mentioned. But that's the challenge in that industry, is there's nobody that's really sticking out that much.
Well, you can also go back to listen to a couple episodes for someone who is sticking out in the LGBT community, and that is the up-and-coming Superbia Services, a credit union specifically designed and for the LGBT community. So the traditional brands will really need to strive to stand out as Superbia gets further along. Very interesting. So if you haven't checked those particular episodes out, I'm going to have a link right up here to Superbia, because it does have a particular draw into this, not to pull away from the other brands in your study. So very neat. Well, let's make sure that when that study does come out, that we do get that so that we can help create visibility for that study here on OutBüro and through all of our channels.
Thank you. It's going out this week, so it'll be in your inbox soon.
Okay. Was there anything else that you would like to tell us about SBCI just for this particular session? Of course, I'm more than happy to have you back at any time.
No, I'd love that. No, and I just want to correct it to be SPI so that we don't send people to the wrong website. But you're going to put that in, so they'll see.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That'll be in the show notes.
Yeah,
and
for us, we're pivoting. SPI has been pivoting into market research and to other content creating types of programming, during this time. But we're also doing a lot. We've been over the years very close to the bars and clubs, so we're also doing a lot, reaching out to a lot of the surviving bars and clubs out there, and trying to create programming that's supporting the staff and the bartenders and other folks. So, this is part of what we're out pitching to some of the potential new clients as well, trying to kind of keep everybody whole during this time frame, because as we get to winter and more people are forced inside, and their occupancy rates can't go above 25%, we're going to continue to lose a lot of folks. And that's a particularly sad thing in the gay community, because the reality is that very often the first place somebody really started coming out and meeting people was in the gay bars. So I'm a big fan of the gay bar ownership and community in general, because they were the first ones to get a brick through a window. They were Stonewall. They were the ones getting raided. They're the ones creating safe spaces that helped raise money during HIV and AIDS. So, finding ways to help support those folks and help keep some of those institutions, I guess, alive and well is one of the things we'd like to also do.
Oh, absolutely. And, for me, it's also a matter of actually having real conversations, talking with another real human standing in front of you. These are great. I love, one of the things of COVID is that I used to have a lot of phone calls. And now I have a lot of these video calls, and I actually prefer it over just a phone call. And, when the technology comes out, I will probably prefer hologram calls just because it'll even be a little bit more real. Well, Scott, it was such a pleasure chatting with you again and learning a little bit more about SPI SPI Marketing, and about your new study that's about to come out. So thank you so much for giving us a little bit more information and spending some time with us this morning.
My pleasure entirely. Thanks, Dennis.
Alrighty. Well, folks, you've been listening to OutBüro Voices. You can find us not only on outbureau.com under episodes, you're also able to find us on YouTube for our YouTube channel at OUTBURO. Also, make sure that while there or on the site that you hit that subscribe button to ensure that you are informed of new episodes that come out. Also, while there, check out the audios. So if you would like to, while you're at the gym, listen while you're on that cardio treadmill and so forth. You can hear OutBüro's current and future episodes on places like Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, and about 14 others. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. You have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.